All right, I'm gonna share my thoughts real quick on the Jordan Peele comments because I think that I've got a slightly different take on it than what I've seen a lot of other people say. And the first time I came across this, I think it was on Twitter, and I just saw Jordan Peele says he's not going to cast white people as the lead in his movies or something. And obviously, I was like, okay, so this is this is going to stir up some controversy. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a problem with this. And when I looked up the interview, I'll just read his comments. He said, "I don't see myself casting a white dude as the lead in my movie. Not that I don't like white dudes, but I've seen that movie." Um, as if there's never been uh, movies with black leads, but anyway, that's kind of funny. He goes on, he says, "The way I look at it, I get to cast black people in my movies. I feel fortunate to be in this position where I can say to Universal, I want to make a $20 million horror movie with a black family, and they say yes." And so I watched or follow several people on social media, and there's some YouTubers that I subscribe to, and I watched all of their comments and reactions to this, and I thought it was um, interesting because usually in a lot of ways I don't have a different thought or reaction to what at least one of them. I follow several people, and one of them will usually say something that I agree with. But this time, I didn't really hear anyone say what I thought, what my initial reaction was, so I figured I'd make a video on this and at least hopefully put out a unique perspective on it. My first reaction to this was that this falls under freedom of association, which I am 100% in favor of. I don't think that there's I in some respects I think that this was unnecessary to say. I think it could just be him trying to create some buzz around his name, just get some name recognition. Because even if it's something allegedly bad or whatever, no press is bad press type of thing. So yeah, could he have not said this? Sure, but does it matter? No. And once I started thinking about it beyond the freedom of association, because he can work with whoever he wants. I don't care. I think that's a good thing. Um, the people that are suggesting that he should cast a white guy as the lead, that doesn't make any sense to me. But what I ended up thinking about is I tried to be creative for a moment and imagine if I were going to create a story or something. And I started thinking about this. I did a little bit of introspection, and what I've always known and always realized is when I'm thinking about this, if I'm creating a story, my default thought is that whoever the people are in my imagination, they're white. And I'm sure that's just mostly because I happen to be white, and most of the people I grew up with were white, and almost everywhere I've lived has been a majority white area. So I'm sure that plays a factor into the way I just imagine a scenario. And so I started thinking about that in relation to his comments, where he said, I don't see myself casting a white dude. I think this is just a verbalization of his internal thought process, because I imagine that for him it's the exact same, but obviously inverse. When he's thinking about these stories, at least, well, let's ignore for a moment the first movie he did, Get Out, because that obviously had a lot to do with race. That was endemic to the story. It wouldn't have made sense. Well, not that it couldn't have made sense, but the way he envisioned the story, it was very important for the characters to be a certain race, and that's fine. But for this movie, obviously he could have done the family in Us could have been anyone. It could have been a white family. It could have been an Asian family, Hispanic family, and he chose to do it with a black family. And I think I could be wrong. He's more than welcome to correct me on this. But when I thought about this, I thought the reason why he picked a black family, I don't know if that's even a correct way to assess what happened, because I think that when he's being imaginative and creative and he thought of this story, I think that his default mindset was that the characters in the story are black. I don't think it required any conscious effort on his part to think that they weren't black. Like I don't think that he thought of the story and assumed that the characters were white, but then made a conscious effort to change that. I'm like, okay, well, because I'm black and I want to support black people, I'll just change the roles to black. Like that doesn't make any sense. When he thought of this story for the movie, I'm sure that he just thought of these people as black because he's black. I'm sure he spent most of his life around other black people. And so that is the default setting. And I think that's what he's verbalizing here, is that his default mindset when he's thinking about other people is that people are black. The same way that I normally think of people as being white. I mean, granted, I don't necessarily think of people as one race or the other, but when I really try to think about it, do some introspection, that is just the default mindset I have, is when I think about someone, an imaginary character, they're typically white unless it matters for them to not be. And so I think that's going to be the same case for him. Unless there's a reason for it to matter, for the person's race to matter, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't just default setting think that people are black. And I feel like I've made that point like 3 times now. But that's ultimately the difference that I've seen, is I don't think I've heard anyone really address that. There's obviously a lot of different things that you can take away from this. You can, depending on which way you go. I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't think there's anything problematic with me thinking of people by default as being white. Just like I don't think there's a problem with Jordan Peele by default thinking that people are black. That's just the way it is. But there's people who have made comments in both directions who, and I do agree with the overall sentiment that there is a significant double standard. If there were a white director that said the same thing, but he said, I'm not going to cast a black dude as the lead in my movies, obviously I think that there would be some super ridiculous outrage and people accusing that person of being racist. And so in an effort to be logically consistent, a lot of the people that I've followed, they kind of say that. They're like, well, we already know that everyone in the mainstream media and the left-leaning people and the Young Turks and all of those people, we already know that if it was a white director that said he doesn't see himself casting a black lead, that they would be labeled as racist. So to be logically consistent, we're going to have to at least call you out for, basically saying that it's not racist when a black director says that. And I agree with that. I think that you should have logical consistency, but in the reverse fashion. I don't think it's racist for Jordan Peele to say this, or alternatively, I don't think it would be racist for a white director to say, I don't see myself casting a black dude as the lead. Now, granted, anyone that's going through this creative process, if they come across a story or they think of a story where it matters, it's important for the lead character to be black. Like, I don't think, like I don't know, we'll see. There's several years ahead of us, but I think Jordan Peele, when he says this, if he ever thought of a story that he thought would be good, where the main character, the lead character, had to be white because it was important to the story, I don't think that he would not make the movie. You see what I'm saying? I could be wrong. He may never make a movie with a white lead, and if he doesn't, I don't care. But I don't think, I'm not going to ascribe to him something that I personally don't see any evidence for. I believe that if he thought of a story where it was vital to the story that the lead character were white, I think that he would still make the movie and cast a white lead. What I'm taking away from this with his comments is that he's basically just saying, verbalizing his internal thoughts. Like, when I think of a story, when I create a story, I'm imagining all the characters being black because that's just the default. So I just don't see myself casting a white guy as the lead. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So hopefully that's been a more unique perspective, perhaps. I'm going to link in the description a couple of the videos that I watched that I was influenced by a little bit, but obviously didn't quite say the same thing I said as far as by default, if you're white, I think that you usually imagine people as being white, whereas if you're black or Asian or Hispanic, you're just going to automatically imagine people as being like you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know if you agree, disagree, or think that either in one direction or the other, if you're super far in the extreme position of like, no, this is absolutely racist and he's racist, or I guess I don't know what the other extreme would be. I guess my position where I don't think it's racist, I don't know. But either way, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and hopefully you liked this.